I think the question for his resignation does not come up at all. He's come back and he has since resumed duty. So I don't think there's any ground to ask him to resign, even though we have some reservation about his trip, his stay, and even his eventual coming back. But there's no question about it. That he should resign is taking the argument too far. I am not too comfortable with that, in my opinion. Like they would say, in matters of opinion, there can be no dispute. I think the president should disclose the ailment, what is actually ailing him, and he should make it public so that we can design and pray and follow it up. It's not too good an idea that he has not been able to disclose what is plaguing him. Well, any speech that is intended to incite the people against the government, be it the federal, state, or local government, is hateful, and I think it should be so punished. But make no mistake about it, we should also try and distinguish hate speech from freedom of speech in itself. So there's a very thin line. We should be able to distinguish hate speech and freedom of speech. So any speech that is inciting in nature, that tends to incite the people against the popular opinion against government, no matter at what level, federal, state, or local government, is hateful. And I think it should be reprehensible and it should be so punished. And like I said before, gossip bill, not a disputadion. In matters of opinion, there can be no dispute. By the time you ask the people to take up arms against the government, be it federal, state, or local government, that's the red line. But when somebody wants to demonstrate or escalate his views about what he thinks in his own interest or in the interest of his people, I don't think that is hateful. Let me be very succinct in what I'm saying. Like the Mumu Don't Come crony by Charlie Boy, I don't think that's a hate speech. He has freedom of association. He has freedom to express his opinion. I've maintained any speech that is supposed to be incitive in nature is the red line, but I think it's too verbose. Without prejudice, this one should not impinge on our freedom of expression. Because if you say every hate speech, every speech properly so-called should be punished, then that tends to mean that it's in radical conflict with the freedom of expression. If it's in radical conflict with the freedom of expression, it requires a violent hammer of dismissal. So any speech that is intended to incite hate against any member of the society, Nigerian society, be it state, federal, or local government, is inciting nature and is reprehensible, is condemnable. I think the security operatives, to a very large extent, they are lackadaisical in really selecting or allowing the hammer fall on those incisive statements by the Arewa, inclusive of of some other groups, so to say. The security operatives, they should be allowed to do their work, isolate those species, isolate those elements that are well known that tend to divide the people rather than unite us. Because that is not exactly what we want. We want things that will enhance us, things that will add value to us. But like you know, we are actually at the league's level. We believe that we are descendants of a sovereign people. We are descendants of people, and in fact, we have decided to suffer no longer. Hate speech, so to say, will not form any point of a reference. Because we are driving a big train, and in that train, there should be no cabin for hatred. We are one nation, so to say. And we believe that this nation is big enough to accommodate all and sundry. Punishment should not be discriminatory. If you are going to punish the IPOP man, the man in Arewa too should be punished. The Ododuwa man too is inciting or threatening to go to war or to even use nuclear should also be isolated and punished. That is not to say that they do not have freedom of expression. But you tend to cross the line when you now incite the people to civil disobedience without proper recourse to the rule of law, individual liberty, and even democracy. Well, let me be very open to you. I've not been able to digest that. Even if I express my opinion here, I probably will be expressing my personal opinion. The League of Patriotic Lawyers is just on our table. We are still digesting it and we'll come up with a policy statement. But as it stands, I think any right-thinking member of this society should try and strengthen the security operatives, especially the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, under the leadership of Ibrahim Magu, and so that we can give enough teeth to the security operatives to fight corruption and allow corruption to take a safe bet so that we can realize nationhood. Because corruption, like you know, has taken us very many years behind. And that is part of the reason why people do not want Ibrahim Magu to be confirmed, because he appears to be the enfant terrible, the terrible infant, who is not giving any breathing space to corruption. So, and again, the judiciary, like we have mentioned in some of our presentation, is also a corporate to a very large extent. That is not to say that we don't have some members of the judiciary that are very enviable. Only recently I read Professor Wambueze's submission that members of the higher bench should be above board when it comes to investigation, arrest and trial. With greatest respect, I disagree with Professor Wambueze. But members of the higher bench or even lower bench, or anybody for that matter, we are subject to the rule of law. If you have read Dicey, Rule of Law, you have read Montesquieu, you realize that nobody, the law says, or the philosopher says, nobody is above the law. Even if you are the CJ of the Federation and there is an aberration, it should be investigated and brought before trial. You also realize that only recently members of the higher bench, some members of the higher bench, so to say, were arraigned and people were miffed, especially members of the judiciary, understandably so. I do not subscribe to that view that anybody should be above the law. But we should try and ensure that whatever we are doing, we do it in consonance with the rule of law. We do it in consonance with individual liberty and democracy. And if I just mention this, you discover that even at the trial we've had so far of members of the judiciary at the leagues level, we are not so comfortable with what is being churned out. Because you discover that some members of the higher bench were, even one, so to say, I wouldn't want to be specific because he's still subject to appeal, was allowed to go on no case submission. I think that, in our opinion, is inadequate, because when you say no case submission, it means that the trial judge shouldn't go into the merits of the case. What it means, it states, it speaks for itself. Res issa locuta. No case submission will be made and sustained if, one, the prosecution has failed to prove an essential ingredient of the offense charged, or the offense as laid by the prosecution is so untidy, manifestly unreliable, that no tribunal can safely convict on it. Arrow versus Coker 1932, we actually tell you what we are talking about. And once you are ruling, you don't need to be too verbose. One or two lines will do. But some of the students we've had so far, were so verbose and all that. And at the same period, I had a client that was also arrested and arraigned for unlawful possession of firearms. That our no case submission was overruled, understandably so. And whilst we were going there, they called me and said, look, some members of your higher bench, we are facing the same thing and all that. How come he has been allowed to go? I was not able to defend, so to say, and I was really miffed and taken aback. It reminds me of what that philosopher stroke biblical prophet would say, that my client will be justified to sing along Professor Isaiah, quotes, truth is slain in the streets, justice standeth afar off, and indeed equity cannot enter, unquote. So what I'm saying in essence is that when a no case is sustained, it doesn't mean the man is guilty or not guilty, so to say. But you give the court, you should give the prosecution enough time to prove his case. And at that level, even if you are going to rule on a no case submission, you don't need to be too verbose. You don't need to go into the merit of the case, because the identity or the integrity, for want of a better word, of the prosecution witnesses is not at stake at this moment. But like I say, the law is the law, is morally binding. That is the law, is on appeal. I don't intend to go into details, but that is the position. At the leagues level, we are not comfortable. And we are watching proceedings at the Court of Appeal and watch proceedings where it takes its safe bet in the safe shores of justice and tranquility. Well, my perception is that it's not only wrong, it is anti-people And one has to be very careful. Because if you go back to history, if you go back to Ghana in 79, I guess, when Rawlings took over, the civil society, the civil institutions, so to say, police, courts, they were so supine and spineless that they were not able to ensure a kind of viable, robust judiciary. All cases that went to the judiciary were thrown away because the people that were culprits, they had enough funds to take very good lawyers. That's what we are doing now. Ibrahim Magu is like a lone child. Ibrahim Magu is not only acknowledged in Nigeria, even internationally. So you see, the country is now divided into parts. Those who are in favor of Magu and those who are against Magu. It stands to reason that those who are against Magu, they are those people that want corruption to be swept under the carpet. Let me give you an instance. If you look at the reasons why the DSS, so to say, wrote that toxic report about Magu, there are some very laughable. There are something that you will say, you know, is unscholarly and cannot stand the test of time. Firstly, they said Magu is living in an apartment that is expensive. It's not that he's the owner of that house, you know, so that's a very laughable thing. And that apartment was rented by a corporate, so to say, who is having some matters before them and all that. I've been a lawyer, I've been around for a while. It's not new that when even a police DPO comes to an area, people in that jurisdiction, even people with questionable background, they help in sustaining apartment for the DPO, the DC, or commissioner. So one is surprised that Magu's case is a different thing. We want to see the exotic cars that Ibrahim Magu is using. We want to see the houses he has built. We want to see Magu being really taken to the cleaners, not these toxic reports. And if you don't mind, the second one was that Magu took some files home when he was really in EFCC under Ribadu. It's not new. If you even go to the police station, people as low as IPO, they take files to work on it. I don't know when that decides to be, or that one is not an offense. But be that as it may, I think the battle is on, is before the court, and I think, you know, like I said, it's divided into two. Those who are pro-Magu, they are those people that want transparency. Those who are against Magu, they are those people that they are scared, they are, you know, Maguphobia, because Magu has not been able to be compromised, so to say. I discovered that after the first rejection, there was, you know, we had some movement to really reach a consensus. You know, they reached out to Magu that he should forget about some of these cases. If Magu is removed, there are some very, you know, some implications. It shows that the presidency is inchoate, indisciplined, cannot stand by its words. And whosoever is coming to take over from Magu will be so pliable and scared that if the Senate, which is championing this Magu must go philosophy, you know, is listened to, there stands to reason that Senate is now the tail that wags the dog, whereas it's the dog that wags the tail. You know, if they want to really precipitate the removal, it's good it's before the lawful court. They should also go ahead to change the constitution, because in the constitution, you will agree with me that that section does not really require, you know, confirmation by the Senate. And in any case, it's in its acting capacity. Acting capacity, you don't need any confirmation. So we are waiting for the courts to come up with whatever they are doing. But at the league's level, we support Magu, hook, like, and sinker. And we have made this known in our submissions, in our, you know, expose and all that kind of thing. We have also written to President Buhari, returning President Buhari, that this issue should not be stampeded into taking action that is precipitate, or that will give the impression to the international world, they recognize Magu, that Magu is okay, and we should work with him, so to say. That is not to say, if I may add this, that if somebody else comes there tomorrow, we will not support. And it's also not true that is a calculated attempt to strengthen the institution. They always say that. But I want to believe that if you stampede the head of an institution out, you make him very weak. You make whosoever is coming very scared. That is not the type of economic crime that we want to take precedence. If Buhari, it is only Buhari that can say, look, Magu, look, I want to remove you. Nobody can do that. It's before the law court, like I said, and you know, as a lawyer, I want to believe that whatever the court says will be binding, because that is the court.